Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Ahkam SOS, the show that discusses Islamic duties and practices. This is a pre-recorded show, so you cannot send your live questions. This show will be discussing questions and answering questions about the festive season. However, first of all, I would like to take the opportunity to send our condolences to the Imam of our time, Ajjallah Ta'ala Farajuh Sharif, our dear viewers, our grand scholars, and all the Shia world on the martyrdom anniversary of Fatima al-Zahra Siddiq al-Kubra, salamullahi alayha. May Allah's wrath and curses be upon those who have oppressed her and denied her rights. We would like to open the show with our dear guest. Assalamu alaikum, Shaykhuna.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Do you have anything to say, Shaykhuna, regarding the Fatimiyya occasion?
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين عظم الله أجوركم وأجورنا. And the condolences to the Imam of our time, Imam Mahdi Ajjallah Farajuh Sharif, on this sad occasion of the Shahada of Fatima al-Zahra salamullahi alayha. Indeed, as mentioned in the narration, that her satisfaction and pleasure is the pleasure of Allah Azza wa Jal and His satisfaction. That رضاها رضا الله وغضبها غضب الله, and her anger is Allah's anger. Mentioned in the books of Shia and non-Shia as well. So, of course, she sacrificed herself in protection of the Imamah of her husband, Imam Ali alayhi salam, and to protect the Islam and protect the Quran. A great sacrifice from the beginning of the Imamat of Imam Ali alayhi salam, after the demise of her father Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So it is a very sad starting for Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, that they start their Imamah in this way, that they have to basically face the loss of the leader of the women of the world, the leader of the women of the heaven, in Jannah. So it's very sad to see this, but ala kulli hal, we have the duty to commemorate this occasion and try to spread the story and the history of this event that took place just few days after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's departure from this world. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un.
Thank you very much, Shaykh. And I would like to add as well that because it's not only a sad day where the Imamah has started, however, it is a day that where all evil as well has originated from, the day of the attack of the door. In our riwayat is Yawm al-Adhab, the day of torture. Isn't that correct, Shaykhna?
Exactly. The riwayat says Aslu Yawm al-Adhab. The origin of the day of the adhab, of torment, was from this day, when they miscarried, when the lady Salamullah alayhi miscarried her fetus Muhsin Salamullah alayhi, and eventually she was fatally wounded and eventually killed. So yes, indeed, we have the other side of the story in which the enemies of Allah Azza wa Jal did not, as they planned and plotted in the Sahifa al-Thaniya, the Sahifa that they've signed, about 35 people, that we will remove the Khilafah from Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam as soon as Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam passes away. And they were successful in this act. So basically, it is a great calamity over Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam to see that their first sacrifice after Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is their mother Fatima alayhi salam. It is a great sadness for them and for their Shia as well.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Shaykhuna. We have questions that have been sent through in regards of the festive season that is now taking place in most of the Western world, let's say. One of the questions that has been sent is, how can we prove that God had sent prophets and messengers?
Yes, basically, as the world celebrates the birth of Isa alayhi salam, or as it's called Jesus, indeed, many would ask, non-Muslims would ask that how can you prove that, there were messengers and prophets, and that was back at least 6,000-7,000 years ago, since Adam alayhi salam. How can you prove that they were prophets and not just scholars? So the hadith is from Kitab al-Kafi by the authority of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, when he was asked by a non-believer or a disbeliever ala kulli hal, who doesn't, let's say atheist, when he said to the Imam alayhi salam, من أين أثبتت الأنبياء والرسل? Where did you get this evidence that there were prophets and messengers? What is the evidence? So the Imam Salamullah alayhi would come with him through the dalil of aql. Sometimes you have to use the logic and reason to prove something, because such individuals, they don't accept any evidential facts from the holy books, for example, or scriptures. They just want from aql. So sometimes you have to respond to them with aql. So the Imam Salamullah alayhi says to him that إِنَّا لَمَّا أَثْبَتْنَا أَنَّ لَنَا خَالِقًا صَانِعًا مُتَعَالِيًا. When we have proved to you that there is a, Allah Azza wa Jal, there's a God in which He is a creator, He's a maker, and He is cannot be seen, cannot be touched. Nothing is like Him, as the Quran says, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. We prove to you that there is a creator with these features and attributes. متعاليا عنا وعن جميع ما خلق, from whatever He created, that He is the highest, أكبر من أن يوصف, as the hadith mentions, that greater than anything to be described. وكان ذلك الصانع حكيما متعاليا, and that maker was wise and متعالي, of high. Nobody can reach Him, nobody can see Him, nobody can touch Him. لم يجز أن يشاهده خلقه. It was not allowed for His creation to see Him, because He cannot be seen. ليس كمثله شيء. You can't see Allah Azza wa Jal. He is not part of the creation to be seen. ولا يلامسوه فيباشرهم ويباشروه. To touch Him or to go face to Him, no, you can't, because he's not with the creation. He is the creator of the creation.
He's superior.
أحسنت. ويحاجهم ويحاجوه. So they would debate with Him and He would debate with them. So that's not possible at all, because Allah is not part of the creation. He is a creator. ثبت أن له سفراء في خلقه. It was evidential that He has ambassadors sent to His creation. After we've proved that Allah does exist, and He cannot really be in touch with the people that He created, to see Him or to talk to Him. So He chose initially the best of the creation, selected them, purified them, and then He sends them as His ambassador and Rasul and messenger to the people to guide them. يعبرون عنه إلى خلقه وعباده. They would interpret and describe what Allah wants from the people, from the ibad. That وما خلقت الجن والإنس إلا ليعبدون. That Allah did not create the jinn and the ins except to worship Him. So the aim is to guide people towards the worship of Allah Azza wa Jalla, not to worship idols and statues and the wrong gods, as we have seen or read in the history of the humanity.
Correct.
That they've made their own gods. So Allah Azza wa Jal He doesn't leave the people to live without any kind of messengers. Otherwise it's going to be absurd. You just create people and leave them. And you have given them aql. Allah is wise. He would give them aql and reason and everything, and He would also send messengers and hujjah to be proof over them on the Day of Judgment.
Thank you very much, Sheikh. Another question. What is the ruling of celebrating other cultures and traditions? For example, in the UK we have bonfire night, which is to do with the history, not religion. What is the hukum of this, Sheikh?
As long as there is no haram associated with these, let's say, parties or celebration, then there's no issue with it. Because what's important the same applies to the weddings, to birthday parties, that when we gather and celebrate something or occasion, we have to make sure that there's no haram involved. Let's say music, dance, mixed gathering, and so forth.
Correct.
These are haram to be على كل حال, to be there in that gathering, because that would, of course, would be a source of the act of sin and the presence of shaitan. So we have to basically be away from such gatherings.
Correct. I mean, in terms of like bonfire night here in the UK, you might go to a gathering and, parties and stuff like that. Usually it's done outside. For example, you'd go there just because your friends are going. But if there's drink involved, alcohol that's being consumed in this gathering outside or in a party, is this for me lawful to go to these parties or no?
We have to stay away from such gatherings and majalis. These are majalis of Ahl Su. We have to make sure that we do not indulge ourselves with these individuals, because if the curse or the adab of Allah descends upon these individuals, that would also include the mu'min as well, because he was with them and he did not do, for example, nahy an munkar, to forbid evil, because that was their belief and religion. So best thing is to stay away from such gatherings. If you want to watch, go somewhere else, or from your garden, for example, and watch, for example, rather than being that gathering.
Correct.
Which is involves haram acts and behaviors and conducts.
Thank you very much, Sheikh. Sheikh, another question. What is the opinion of Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Sistani that Christmas is everywhere in the UK? And are we allowed to wish people Merry Christmas? For example, some people have workplaces, they have colleagues. Are they allowed to wish, or neighbors, a good neighbor, are they allowed to wish a Merry Christmas for them or no?
Samahat Sayyid mentions that it is, yes, permissible to greet Ahlul Kitab or even non-Ahlul Kitab with their greetings, be it Christmas, be it Passover, be it Easter, to wish them, let's say, a happy, let's say, Christmas or Passover or any other occasions they have. That is allowed to this limit or to this boundary, that we don't go beyond that. Let's say shaking hand with the opposite gender, hugging, and
indeed, yeah,
because that would be haram if it's with a different gender. So yeah, that would be permissible according to many opinions, of course.
In terms of that category, can we write Christmas cards and send them to our friends and family or no?
Again, there is no issue with that. One can actually do that and send the cards. Again, if there's no haram involved, that would be allowed as well.
Thank you, Sheikh. Can we buy Christmas gifts for our Christian friends, or is that not permissible?
You see, giving away gifts is something encouraged in Islam. There's, I think, a statement, tahaddu tahabbu, that give gifts and you'll be loving each other in somehow. The love would comes through giving gifts
to each other. Yeah.
But in anyhow, if that love is for the opposite gender, that's a problem.
That's a problem, yeah.
You're giving to opposite gender, let's say, a specific gifts, for them, and they would love you, for example, and they would exchange love and so forth, romantic words, and so that would lead to haram. That would, be, of course, a problem.
Deviation.
Or if it's just a professional, let's say, professional environment and meeting, and you're just giving a gift, that should be fine.
Okay, thank you very much. On the other hand, can I accept Christmas gifts from our friends?
Again, this is allowed as well, permissible, as long as there is no haram again involved. And number two, there's no promotion for the batil or for the wrong belief and so forth. Because sometimes they're giving this gift to promote their own doctrine or aqidah. That is, of course, one should not accept such gifts which actually wants to promote their, sometimes they give also their holy book, for example, beside that gift, for example.
Yeah.
So it depends really. If it's just an innocent gift without any intentions, that should be fine.
Inshallah. Thank you very much. Are we allowed to put up Christmas decorations, including trees? I mean, I think this topic comes around every single year. You know, are we allowed to put Christmas trees up as Muslims, as Shi'is? You know, is this allowed or no?
You see, initially, before we go to the fatwa discussion, number one, alhamdulillah, the Muslims have dozens of a'yad.
Indeed, yeah.
Of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, their birthdays. We have Eid al-Ghadir, the grand Eid of Islam. Eid al-Adha and Fitr. We have lots of a'yad and great Eids and celebrations. Why don't we concentrate on these a'yad in which there's no that much emphasis on those a'yad, especially Eid al-Ghadir.
Indeed, that's correct.
Other a'yad as well. So why don't we concentrate and promote and encourage our youth and children to celebrate that great Eid, the grand Eid of Islam and Allah Azza wa Jal. So I think we have to concentrate on this issue rather than just imitate and copy others.
Yeah.
This is our problem now. Sadly, in some of the Muslim countries, they put a tree in their shops and they celebrate.
Indeed, everywhere.
People come out in the streets of some of the holy cities. I don't want to mention the holy city name. Celebrate and they ala kulli hal. So I think we have to be proud of our identity as a Muslim, as a believer, that we have this great religion with so much celebrations and festive seasons. You know, mashallah, you have now, let's say in Rajab and Sha'ban, many celebrations and mawalid in this holy month, these 2 months, and then you have month Ramadan as well. So that's the first thing. Number two, that we should educate our children with the hub of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad sallallahu and to celebrate, as they've mentioned, يفرحون لفرحنا, celebrate with their celebration, ويحزنون لحزننا, and to be sad in their sad occasions. So we have to work and put the emphasis and encouragement to do ihya of Amr Ahl Bayt alayhim salam, to revive their matter.
Revive their occasions.
Rather than reviving other people's or faith's matters and so forth, or occasions. As a fatwa, yes, if there is no promotion, 2 conditions that ulama put. Number one, there's no promotion for the batil. You're not promoting the falsehood and the batil, aqidah and faith. And number two, there's no haram involved. One can do so. But as I've said before, that one should encourage and promote a'yad of Islam, especially the grand Eid of Allah, Eid Allah al-Akbar, Eid al-Ghadir. So we try to concentrate on these a'yad, and of course put the decorations and
give
gifts. Maybe you can bring, I don't know, one of the brothers was suggesting to bring a palm tree to decorate a palm tree, for example.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
For example, I mean, so we try to create our own environment of celebration.
Indeed, yeah.
So that our kids are grown with the true aqeedah of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad sallallahu alayhi.
That's correct. We have a very rich identity, we have a very rich culture, we have a very rich religion and madhab. And it's very sad that, you know, we promote other people's matters. However, our matters in terms of Eid al-Ghadir, Eid al-Adha, as you just said, Shaykhuna, Sha'ban, Rajab, Ghadir al-Thani, Farhat al-Zahra, we don't revive them as much as we revive other people's matters. And that's truly, I think, it's pretty bad for our youth, and we should focus on them a bit more. Ahsantum Shaykhuna. Another question. In the office, we have companies pay for Christmas lunches and dinner. As people working for these companies, can we attend or no?
Again, it is permissible, but if there's no promotion for the batil and falsehood, number two, there's no haram involved. Sometimes they bring alcohol on the table, and it's haram to sit in a gathering where the alcohol is served on the dinner table. You cannot consume food or drink, even if it's halal food and drink, where there's alcohol on the table being consumed by somebody. So that's the problem, that we have to be very careful with these invitations and parties or gatherings in which haram should not be there, otherwise I have to leave. Or from the beginning, say, sorry, I can't attend.
Give an excuse, yeah.
Khalas.
A lead-on question from that. If I'm at a company dinner and there's a long table for 30 guests, and there's alcohol on one end, may I sit on the other end?
Again, as I've said now, that if it's counted as one dinner table, سفرة واحدة, then of course it is not permissible. Again, one should not attend such dinner or lunch, be it a company lunch or let's say neighbors or friends lunch and so forth, because that would be also as a sin, counted as a sin.
Thank you, Sheikh. My son's class has to perform a Christmas carol in front of the school. Even though this is a religious song, is he allowed to perform this or no?
Again, the ulama would put the two conditions. If this does not promote the batil and the falsehood of the other people's faith and creed, and number two, there's no haram involved, and they can join. Yeah, it's just a, they're just reading nasheed, for example.
Yeah,
a poetry.
In terms of like this whole situation, this is considered as singing, ghina. A lot of schools in the UK, they have singing assemblies at least once a week, for at least primary schools. Is this allowed, generally speaking, throughout the whole year, regardless if it's Christmas or not?
Of course, parents should do their best to try to avoid their kids into going into such sessions or classes or, let's say music classes and so forth. They do their best to avoid, because otherwise the kids would grow up with this mentality that, what's wrong with music? And what's wrong with dance? And what's wrong with mixed gathering? That you're trying to say haram, haram, haram. So one should educate their children.
At least, yeah.
At least with this issue that, this is haram. Try to not to listen. Try not to go if you can. So inshallah, may Allah protect our children from these haram acts, inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you, Sheikh. Another question. Are we allowed to invite people over for a meal, as it is Christmas and everyone is on holiday or has a day off? For example, some families, because they work 5 days, 6 days a week, and they have this day off, regardless if it's for Christmas or not, because they have the day off, can they invite people to their homes for a lunch or dinner?
If it's the believing individuals, mu'mineen, let's say, parents, siblings, and so forth, cousins, uncles, yeah, that's fine, as long as there's no haram involved in that meeting. Rather, it could be also mustahab, because that's going to go under the title of Salatul Rahim.
No, correct.
The bond of kinship. Other means of mustahabbat that you meet. You're actually inviting your parents, inviting your brothers and sisters, you're inviting your uncles, relatives to come on that day and have some dinner. Some people would even turn this to even more istihbab, that you would hold a majlis, especially if it's Fatimiyya time now.
Correct, yeah.
While it's Christmas. Then one can actually bring a khatib or maulana to read the lecture, for example, and Noha, for example. That would be even great, that you've turned this occasion into the occasion of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Remembering Ahlul Bayt. Why not?
Correct. That's correct. I mean, from my limited knowledge of fiqh, every action is mubah. That means, it's neutral. However, from your niyyah, you could turn it into something mustahab.
Ahsant.
And that's why I'm guessing, like probably a normal lunch, for example, just reading a ziyarah.
Exactly.
Would make this gathering, for example, hadith al-kisa.
Exactly.
Would make this gathering from a mubah, or just a normal gathering, into something mustahab.
Definitely.
Thank you very much, Sheikh. Another question from... Can I wear a Christmas jumper to work as everyone else is wearing one in the office or no?
Again, if there's no haram involved in this act and it doesn't promote, sometimes you have the logo of, let's say, beer or alcohol bottles, for example. It doesn't promote that batil or falsehood, aqidah or belief, that should be fine.
I mean, especially right now, during Fatima season, I think everyone should be more constrained about wearing black, showing signs of mourning as a Shia person. So I think someone should, minimize that. As istihbab, wear something black instead, I think. Thank you, Sheikh. Are we allowed to wish people a Happy New Year? I mean, in terms of like Christmas, it's a religious occasion. The New Year is not much so as a Christmas occasion. Are we allowed to greet other people, for example, Happy New Year, or no?
Yes, it's allowed. There's no issue with it. As I've said before, that it should not involve any haram act. Shaking hand with the opposite gender, hugging the opposite gender. So one should be careful with this issue, that they don't go into the act of haram.
Thank you very much, Sheikh. A lead-up question for that. Can we celebrate the New Year with fireworks or parties?
Again, if there's no haram involved, as I've said before, that should be fine. What is important that there's no haram within these parties or celebrations.
Thank you, Sheikh. This is a very interesting question, actually, Sheikh. When is the Islamic New Year, and can we celebrate it if it's, you know?
Yeah, the correct or the true Islamic year starts in Rabi' al-Awwal, when the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam migrated from Mecca to Medina. This migration is the Hijrah. The Hijri date starts from when he migrated from Mecca to Medina.
The first of Rabi' al-Awwal.
Exactly. So that is actually the correct Hijri calendar. Sadly, Bani Umayyah came and they put it back to in the time of the Jahiliyyah was, which is first of Muharram.
First of Muharram.
To cover on what they did in Ashura. So yes, the correct Hijri date is in Rabi' al-Awwal. Supposed to be, should be. And the Prophet's migration, in which the history starts from that. You know, Islamic history starts from that time.
That's a bit strange because, you know, actually most Muslim countries, if not all Muslim countries, start their, you know, Islamic calendar from the first of Muharram. Why is it, for example, some Shia countries, they don't start that? For example, Iraq.
You know, because became like a default date. You can't really change it, and you got all these appointments. It's difficult sometimes to change, you know, the whole history in this way. So that's why they just leave it as it is. But we have to tell people that this wasn't the right history, or the calendar wasn't the correct calendar, because enemies of Ahlul Bayt came and changed it to Muharram, to what was in Jahiliyyah, so that they can cover up on what they did in Ashura.
Correct. I mean, even if the Islamic date or the Islamic New Year starts in Rabi' al-Awwal, as Shi'is, are we supposed to celebrate it or no?
You see, celebration, if it doesn't involve any haram, one can do so. But we have to see what a'mal are there. For example, we have for the first of the month, when you see the hilal, there's a dua, for example. There's a salat awwal al-shahr. There's a ghusl for awwal al-shahr. There's ghusl and salah for the first day of the month, for example. There could be a dua as well. So there are a'mal, but mainly ibadi. Even Eid al-Nawruz that some would go for, that this is part of the Islamic a'yad. Some ulama would go for this opinion that in Mafatih Jannah there are a'mal that you pray 2 rak'at kada kada. So it's you know, there isn't like the Christian celebrations, that parties and so forth. It's mainly ibadah.
Connecting
we thank Allah Azza wa Jalla for this Eid. I think we read this line in Salatul Eid in Fitr and Adha, الذي جعلته للمسلمين عيدا. So it's like we thanking Allah Azza wa Jalla that you make this Eid for the Muslims, and the blessings from you know, this great day after fasting and so forth, or Hajj, for example. So it's like we thanking Allah Azza wa Jalla, Shukrullah, Alhamdulillah, on this great day.
Thank you very much, Sheikh. What is the opinion of Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Sistani, the permissibility to send disbelievers seasonal greetings?
Again, the Sayyid says there's no harm in greeting them on their occasions. Again, if there's no haram involved, as I've said before. No shaking hands with the opposite gender, for example, or exchanging haram gifts like alcohol and so forth. Just to greet them, that should be fine. There's no issue with it.
Thank you very much, Shaykhuna, for taking your time to address these topics and these questions in the festive season. And we would like to thank our dear viewers at home for watching. Thank you very much, and inshallah we'll see you in the next episode.